I am Laura Bankert. I am the Outreach and Events Director at the Historical Society. Unfortunately, Jason is under the weather, so he couldn't make it today, but he sends his apologies to everyone. We're excited about this box lunch talk. We've been looking forward to it. Just a few quick reminders. Our annual meeting is October 28th, which is next Tuesday, and that is at the Westminster Riding Club. If you haven't signed up, please do so. We have a Carroll 250 speaker event, Francis Scott Key by Lou Giles, and that's November 18th. Actually, the date is wrong. We just changed the date. So if you got the HSCC upcoming events, the date is incorrect. Our next box lunch talk is Growing into Greatness, the Big Tree documentary presented by Dr. Robert Lemieux. That'll be here again. And then we have a special, because the society is under construction, we aren't able to have our open house as we did last year, which is upsetting, but next year is going to be great. So we have November 29th will be Tease the Season, which is a special tea it's called Sunday Morning at Savannah's, but the event is on a Saturday, so don't get confused by that. And if you haven't signed up, please do so. Everyone is welcome for that. And now it's time to introduce our speaker. Are you ready, Tom?
Yep.
So Tom Rasmussen is the former president of New Windsor State Bank and is from Catonsville originally. He is married to his lovely wife, Rachel, with whom he has 2 children. He currently resides in Finksburg, and he is giving a talk about the history of New Windsor State Bank. So let's give him a round of applause.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the introduction. I have had the privilege and honor of being associated with New Windsor State Bank from 2001 to 2017 when we merged with AC&B Bank. So I'm going to do the best I can to give you an overview of some interesting history of the bank. We're going to look at some slides with artifacts and some photographs of the bank, and hope you'll find it interesting. I hope I do a decent job. I'm retired now, so I don't have time to do a lot of this preparation. So anyway, so what has happened here recently that this has precipitated this talk? And when I retired from the bank in 2022, before I retired, I went to the vault where we kept all the records, photographs, documents, artifacts that we have compiled over the years. And I thought, well, who's going to keep this information? Where will it go when I leave? So I went to my colleagues in management at AC&B and said, listen, I have a home for all this information that's filling up this vault. Let's donate it to the New Windsor Heritage Committee. And the management team said, yes, that's a great idea. And so I want to really do a special shout out to my colleagues at AC&B who said, yep, let's make sure this stuff is available down the road for other people to see one day. So today we're going to reflect on some of these items and some stories in our local history and some nostalgia for, I know a lot of you are customers of the bank, maybe are still customers who have some special thoughts about the bank in the past. I need to give very, very special thanks to Bryce Workman. I hope a few of you maybe know Bryce, who was a true historian who, wrote two documents on the history of the bank. And I'm going to use a lot of his information today to share with you. And these were limited edition publications, and I know that a number of them have ended up with the Heritage Committee that may one day be available for research purposes if you want to, take a deeper dive into some of this history. So, all right. So you can see this building. It's still there. 205 New Windsor Pike. That was the original bank building in 1864. And so we're going to take a little walk through memory lane here in terms of the locations of the bank and share some interesting stories, if I can figure out how to work this. Okay, so number one, you can see that is 205. This number two photograph is where the bank eventually built its first headquarters, and that building is obviously still there and is still being used by the bank. And so before I go much further, let me talk a little bit about why the bank established itself in 1864. You think, wow, that was kind of a tumultuous time in our history with the Civil War. But something very important happened in 1862, not the Civil War, something else. Does anybody know? The railroad, exactly. The Western Maryland Railroad came to New Windsor. And that allowed the farmers and merchants in the town and community to receive goods faster, to ship goods faster and much more economically, as well as the preparation of food from the farms for the army. So in 1864, a group of citizens invested and organized the First National Bank in New Windsor. And that was the individuals Thomas Shepard and Joseph Stauffer. Now you're going to see pictures of them here in a little bit. But the First National Bank in New Windsor was nationally chartered and was the 747th national bank in the country and only the 5th in the state of Maryland. And the national charter gave them the ability to issue bonds, as well as banknotes or greenbacks. Now, from its first home on Main Street, in 1878, number 2 slide up there, the bank bought lot 9. Back in those days, there were still a lot of lots available on Main Street. For $700, they bought that lot and built the brick building that you see on number 2, which is now known as 209/211 Main Street. Notice the bar. It's kind of hard to see the bars in the window here. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And the funny thing about it was the bank occupied the right side of the duplex. The left side was occupied by a drugstore and the post office for New Windsor, which they paid rent to the bank, which is, kind of a neat thing to have there. And later in slide 3, you can see a bay window was added. And I found this quote from Nathan Bale, the very, very famous father in New Windsor, and also a secretary of the bank and a cashier at the bank. Now, he wrote this, so I thought it was kind of neat. I'll quote, "Our already handsome drugstore has been improved by a commodious and artistic bay window. The proprietor of the drugstore, Louis Dealman, has also added a very elaborate and beautiful soda water fountain." So I thought that was kind of cool. Anyway, so by 1914, we're moving ahead here, its 50th year, the bank became so prosperous, decided to build a much more imposing edifice. which was completed in 1915, which is number 4 here, right next door to the original bank, and certainly still shared that location. They completed that building in 1915 for $23,000. So there really wasn't much change to the physical bank until 1980, if you can imagine. Okay, in 1980, the first drive-through teller window was added. Okay, all right. The duplex building next door, you know, in 2, it was renovated in 1995. Then in the year 2000, what do you think was added to the bank? Anybody want to guess? Technology was coming? ATM. First ATM was added in 2000. The bank was growing very nicely at that time, and we added a second story to the back of the bank to accommodate some more parking as well as more room, and created a boardroom for our board, and that was in 2004. The first branch was added in 2000 in Westminster, and it went on from there. All right, so number 6 here, you can see, let's see here. So this is the original bank building here, okay? This is where New Windsor Heritage Committee's museum is, and then the bank facility, the 2 bank facilities. That's what it looks like today. Still there. All right. All right, so this gentleman, Thomas Shepard, was the first president of the bank, and he was instrumental in starting the bank back in 1864. I'm going to talk about some of these artifacts, which are still on display at the bank, by the way, and I'll get to that later. This item, number 2, is what was called an Ernst and McCook money changer, and that was used to dispense change mechanically with wood. So it's kind of a neat thing to see. And then, believe it or not, number 3 was a coin scale, because back in those days, folks figured out ways to shave coins and to collect some gold dust or silver dust to kind of save some money, and basically created counterfeit coins. So that was prevalent even then. So that scale was used to kind of make sure everything was copacetic. Number 4 is our famous Miller safe, and it is on display at the main office in New Windsor. On top is some original safe deposit boxes. This is the safe that we're going to talk about later in the presentation that was robbed in the great New Windsor bank robbery. So it is still there to be seen. And the last item is another scale that they use to weigh coins, bags of coins. All right, some more interesting things to look at. Item number 1 is an original stock certificate for the First National Bank of New Windsor. It was issued to a Charles Nicodemus at the time, and we do have an original one on display at the bank as well, which I'll show you a picture of later. To the right, these are just some interesting things that we actually have physical, provenance of documents that we still have, and actually there's some of these things are back in some notebooks for folks to look at. Is a deposit slip, okay? And number 3 is we have an original greenback. This was issued by the First National Bank of New Windsor. We have it on display, but these items are very, very difficult to find now. And in fact, there's one of our notes is at the Smithsonian. All right, let's go on here. All right, so a few items here of note. So that's Nathan Bale, number one, sitting. He's the head cashier. He was sitting behind the teller line. Back in those days, this teller line is still there, except the cage is long gone. And I searched high and low to try to find out where it ended up. We have some pieces of it on display at the bank, but I guess at some point in time it was determined to, for a small bank in a small town that we didn't need all this, separation. And I think in the 70s it was removed. And if anybody knows where any pieces of it is, I'd love to know, okay? But in any event, Nathan Bale, he's sitting there. This picture apparently was done in 1925. You really can't see it here, but there's a spittoon back there. So, that was something that was, I guess, fairly common back in those days. And I tell you, really can't really see it too well here. I'll try my best to make sure, bank security, 1920s style. The bank had 2 shotguns. We found this one. This one was behind the curtain upstairs in the original boardroom. And funny story, when bank examiners would come to the bank, they would see this shotgun. And it apparently was a little intimidating for them. But back in those days, it was not uncommon for people to basically, secure themselves and make sure the money of the bank depositors' money doesn't get away. So the mural we added this mural to the bank. This is number 4. I hope folks who have been in the bank can appreciate it. We had these big walls with nothing, very, very high ceilings with really nothing on them, no real pictures. It looked very stark. And we thought it would be nice to put a mural reflecting some of the history of New Windsor and some specific buildings that were noteworthy buildings to be included, the fountain and things of that nature, the history of the town. So it really helped decorate the branch and make it more inviting. So if you get a chance, you should go to the main office and see it. I'm very proud of it. In the boardroom upstairs, kind of hard to see, is a display of a lot of these artifacts that I'm showing you. Okay, they're all together, and I didn't really put all these the various artifacts in this presentation because you can go see them there. I've asked the folks at the bank to, if you want to go see any of these original artifacts, they will, you need to check with the manager at the main office and maybe schedule a time that you can be escorted upstairs. But it's worth the effort to go see these things, the original items that are on display. And I encourage you to do so. They're just too heavy. I'd have brought them with me, but they're just too heavy to deal with. And but there's some beautiful things there from our past that I hope folks will go see one day. So item number 6, if you're ever in the main office, you look up. There's a stained glass skylight in that branch, and the history to me was that it was a Tiffany stained glass. I can't find anything in the records to verify that. All I know is it's beautiful. Come take a look at it. And when we did some renovations to the bank in 2004, I went down into the basement, back by the furnace. There were these big, heavy doors that were just haphazardly propped up against the wall. And I said, what are these things? Well, lo and behold, they were the original front doors to the bank. And they are beautiful. You can see the National Bank insignia there. So when we built the new boardroom at the main office in New Windsor, we had those doors refinished and put up as doors to the boardroom. And also very proud that we were able to save all that original architecture. And so why did they take the doors off the front doors off the bank? Well, apparently they were so heavy, some of the older customers had a hard time getting in, and if it was a windy day, they got knocked over by the doors. So that I guess was a safety issue. That was the reason why they changed the doors at the time. So anyway, okay, slide 6. All right, these items are also on display upstairs in the main office boardroom. That's the original. Number 1 is the original secretary's chair that you saw Nathan Bale sitting on in the picture. The shears, number 3, those were used. They're really long scissors, and they were used to cut coupons back in the day. And that's an original bank statement book with, a lot of the original customers' names in there. You can see in number 2 what the checks look like. They had a picture of a little boy, which we think was Nathan Bale as a child. Okay, if someone can figure out who that is, that's great. But those are original checks we have. There's some ones in the notebook in the back that you can look at. Number 4, a savings nest egg. Does anybody have one? There are a few around. Okay, but it was a promotional item that was given for people to put coins, and you could roll up a bill and stick it in the other end. So anyway, this was a silver-plated brass giveaway item, apparently, back many years ago. Some of us still collect a lot of these old giveaway banks. Okay. All right, so something that the bank is famous for, or maybe infamous for, was the Great New Windsor Bank heist, okay, in 1869. So we'll talk a little bit about it, since it did occupy a fair amount of local history as well as information in the book about the bank. So in January of 1869, the bank was broken into, and that would have been, the first building I showed you, that's the location where the bank originally started, and that's where the robbery occurred. So these fellas were able to get into that through the second floor window, and in the middle of the night they were able to open the safe, and that was the Miller safe that I showed you earlier. And they left with $113,000 worth of bonds. These were mainly railroad bonds and county bonds, which were bearer bonds. They could have been cashed, at any investment house. And then about $9,000 in greenbacks were taken. So when the staff was alerted to this in the morning, Nathan Bale got on his horse and rode to Westminster to the telegraph office to let folks know what has happened. The bank hired a detective agency out of New York, Smith, Pearson, and West. Actually, I'm sorry, not New York, Baltimore. And notices were printed. So, Joseph Stauffer was the president of the bank at the time. There he is. He along with Tom Shepard, were the original, benefactors who started the bank. Number 2 here is an original flyer that was created back then to let people know about the robbery. These were spread out from Washington, D.C. all the way to Boston. So they did end up catching these guys. And we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a moment. They kind of left their footprints around town, and people took note of it. So they were able to be caught, and ultimately they were caught up in New York City. And the bank recovered about $99,000 worth of the bonds and about $5,000 worth of cash. That they had to spend nearly $17,000 in commissions paid as part of the reward, as well as commission to the detective agency. So as I'm reading this history, all right, I'm thinking, all right, these guys, there were two guys that had been arrested before for robbery. Well, after a week or so, the judge released them, apparently had an alibi or what have you, and they were released. Don't know why. That's where the story ends. But the bank did get a majority of its funds back. Okay, let's look at some interesting stuff here. So, now, you can see I've already mentioned the certificate. This display is related to the robbery. Now, the shotgun is post-robbery. It's a 1911 Remington. That was acquired later, at some point in time, around the turn of the century to protect the bank. But this is a display of some of the money, greenbacks, reward poster, and the accounting. This is an accounting of the robbery, the original documents. And it's kind of interesting to see. That's also on display up in the boardroom at the main office. So, a fair amount is known about how these guys got into the bank. Certainly, they felt like they stayed at the Dealman Inn like a day or two in advance. They were clearly from out of town, and back in those days, folks would, kind of notice if you were an out of towner. So they just took note of, who they were. They left the hotel in the middle of the night, and you can see the Dealman Hotel's here, Main Street, the bank building right here. They went in through the second floor window. They got into the safe. Then they went to the Presbyterian Church, which still exists right behind. Those of you familiar with it. They went down into the basement, and there they sorted through what they had taken out of the vault, separated it, did whatever they needed to do, and they left their tools, they hid them. Okay? Many years later, when renovations were occurring at the church, those tools were discovered. It's kind of interesting. So they left the church. They were, the theory is they had a carriage waiting, but something happened to the carriage. We're not sure, it broke or something, so they went to the train station and they found a, what would it be called? Those things that you push like this? There you go. So apparently this was in January, okay, it's cold. They did this all the way to Westminster, okay? And then they hopped on a train to Baltimore, and from there onwards up to New York. And a lot of people noticed them. People in Baltimore noticed them, people in Westminster noticed them, so they had a good description of who these people were. Let's see here. So from from where the bank was, number one there is where the robbery occurred. This is the Dealman Inn, where they stayed 2 nights there. Theodora Dealman noticed that their beds weren't slept in that day. So she knew something kind of alerted her to why, these folks are staying here, but they didn't stay there. And then the Presbyterian Church, where they got into the basement and sorted out their goods. So eventually, pictures were provided, descriptions were given. The New York police figured, all right, well, here's some pictures of some folks we know who do a lot of this kind of work. And sure enough, that was shared, and they recognized the 2 of these characters, and they were eventually arrested. But like I said, they were in jail for a week and then released. So we don't really know much more than that. But back in those days, this was before Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It was kind of rare. And in any event, so subsequent to that, when the bank built the duplex next door, they put bars in the window, okay? And I'm not sure they're still there. They are still there, okay. So in any event, that was the Great New Windsor robbery. All right. So, the Great Depression, okay, 1930. The bank was not immune to the challenges at that time. And in 1931, the bank, First National Bank of New Windsor, closed its doors. And I cannot find anywhere, I know Bryce looked, he couldn't find it anywhere, whether the depositors lost any money or not. We just don't know for sure. I am inclined to think that they did not, okay, because the next year, the bank's folks got together, we need a bank. So I think that there was still confidence that it could be done. So a group of citizens got together in 1932 to form a new bank, and they chartered it as a state bank, and they purchased the property which the First National Bank occupied. Dr. J. Sterling Getty purchased all the assets of the First National Bank of New Windsor. These are just, real estate, equipment, and things of that nature for $8,000. So he got a good deal. But the one important thing that we feel really helped provide confidence to the local folks and the depositors and customers was that in 1933, the FDIC insurance fund was created, the Federal Deposit Insurance Fund. So that would hopefully help guarantee that folks would not lose money in the event of a default. So that really, we feel, was the linchpin that helped not only New Windsor, but many other small communities to reestablish their banking, which was so important where folks could put their money. So that announcement came in 1932. All right, let's see here. I'm not sure I'm going to keep you for a whole hour here, but I'll do the best I can. So I had to put it in there. The bank went many years till it was robbed again in 1996. And you can see that there were a number of banks at the time that were robbed. I don't want to make light of the fact that these robberies occurred. They're very stressful and certainly challenging. But this one in particular affected New Windsor. And it really, this particular person who was doing all these became known as the Conehead Bandit because he wore kind of a weird looking hat. But the bank, only lost $2,300 at that point, and they did catch the guy, and he went away for 22 years. I wanted just to, up to date in terms of what happened really subsequently, not much happened between, 2000. We started adding branches. We did, I didn't really put these in, but because it's all current stuff, we ended up with 7 branches. And in 2017, the bank decided to merge with AC&B Bank out of Gettysburg. And I thought I'd mention just briefly the circumstances surrounding that. At that point in time, technology was really rolling. And the digital world, banking online, banking with your phone, all these technology issues were very, very expensive for the bank and for a small community bank. That was a challenge, and the stock that we had, there really was not any liquidity in the stock. It was very localized, and it was hard to find it and hard to sell it. So AC&B came along, and they were, maybe 2 to 3 times our size, but they were a community bank out of Gettysburg. We liked the way that they, their philosophy of banking, and felt that it was a good time to get with them. And so I think it's been wonderful since. I hope, that any of you who have accounts, still have accounts with them, or experiencing good things. That bank was started in 1857. So we felt like we were in good company as well. So now, here we are, all these artifacts, a lot of pictures and really neat documents are now with the New Windsor Heritage Committee. And where's Linda Selby? There's Linda. Okay, do you want to tell us a little bit about what the plans are?
Hang on, Linda, we have a...
Currently, we're working on a research room, so we've sorted out our materials so it's easy to find specifically what we might want to research. And it probably won't be ready until, what would you say, sometime in the spring? Sometime in the spring. Right now, our research room is all bunched up into the middle of the room because we're getting ready to paint, and everything will be sorted out. And you'll be able to use your computers in the room, but you'll also be able to look at some of the artifacts. And Tom has given New Windsor Heritage an amazing history, not just of the bank, but of New Windsor. He's given us 5 huge notebooks that have plastic covers, so it's easy to go through without fear of damaging anything. There are a lot of things that are in the pictures up here, money, receipts, so many more things than what he was able to show you here. So once we get it ready, we'll put it in our town newsletter, but I think we'll also put it in that weekly thing in the Carroll County Times so that you would know our museum is usually open from 10 to 1 every Saturday. But if you are really interested in researching, I'm sure we can make some arrangements for you to come in, and one of us will be here to help you.
All right, thank you, Linda. Appreciate it. So I went through 153 years fairly quickly. I thought I would spend a little time if there are any questions or any anecdotes that folks may have remembered from their childhood or things of that nature that might be interesting to hear about the bank.
If you just want to raise your hand, we'll bring a microphone to you.
There's...
I'm curious how the Presbyterian Church knew that they sorted all their money and everything down in their basement. Did they just see things?
There's a theory that there was a gentleman hired to teach Sunday school, and was there during the robbery, wasn't involved with the robbery that we're aware of, but he left within a week of the robbery, and they're thinking, all right, well, he was there kind of, checking the place out and to see how things worked. So how did they get into the basement? Whether the door was open or they just picked the lock, who knows? But all I know is that when renovations occurred, they found this stuff in the wall or behind the wall or somewhere where they stashed it. That's all the record I have. You might know more. Folks with the church might know more. Okay.
I wrote a little article about the robbery and Nathan Dean's bail. He lived to be quite an old man, and I think when he was young, he actually had been in Gettysburg and heard Abraham Lincoln give the Gettysburg Address. And he lived into the 20th century, and he heard the dedication of the Lincoln Memorial.
Wow.
Which is a pretty amazing
Yeah.
lifespan of involvement with
Yes.
Lincoln. But I can't remember too much about the rest of his life. He did live across the street from the bank, across Main Street there in
Right.
Windsor. I don't know whether he found any of the other stuff or somebody else knows about him.
Well, I know. There's books. I think books written on the Dealman family, which are fascinating people, as well as the Bale family. I know Jack Bale, which is, I don't know, the great-great-grandson. He donated some of the materials that you see in that shadow box to the bank. So I give Jack some credit. We do have the original portrait of Mr. Stouffer is in the main office. You can see it behind the teller line. It's hanging there next to the vault. And photographs of all the presidents and folks who've been involved. Nellie Lance and things like her pictures there. Names that are very famous in the town of New Windsor. I also want to recognize we have 3 New Windsor employees here, former employees. Lisa Monthly, Barbie Ball, and Judy Coe are here. They grew up with me. So I appreciate seeing their faces here. And anyway, I hope I did some level of justice to the bank. Any other questions? I'll let you go. If there are no other, I appreciate very much. Oh, there's a question. Yeah. Oh, Linda.
One of the most amazing artifacts that Tom gave us is over here on the table. It's very heavy.
Yeah.
It is
It's the original time lock to the vault,
that was down in the basement.
the 1915 building.
So it would, if you think you'll never get to New Windsor, to our museum, this would be a great time to see that. It's just fascinating.
Pretty neat, pretty cool. Thank you, Linda. Okay. Well, with that, yes. Question.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
Some idea. What, from all your years in the bank and from this research, what are some of the most, challenging and important? Can you give us some examples of some unusual requests the banks had to respond to over the years and how that turned out?
Unusual requests.
Yeah, things that
Can you think of anything?
like, gosh, should we do this? Shouldn't we do it? Is there an opportunity? Is there a threat? That kind of thing.
Well, to grow the bank is certainly one of the biggest challenges, and looking as we got, larger and more folks wanted to utilize the bank's services, we had to, look at Westminster. We had to look at, other areas and towns and what have you. So that was probably one of the tougher things to determine. Will they come and bank with us if we put a branch in? And back in those days, physical branches were important. There wasn't a whole lot going on with the cell phone yet. That became very challenging, obviously, later, and trying to figure out, are we going to be relevant anymore? Can we keep up with this technology? Can we prevent the fraud and the hacking and all that, the stuff that requires an immense amount of resources? to protect folks. So I don't know, ladies, anything interesting that you can think of? That one comes to my mind.
I would just say when I joined the bank in 2000, Senator Smeltzer,
Yep.
probably everyone knows, and you would do a loan for someone, and you give them a 2-page application to fill out, and they're like, no, just shake my hand. You know, Senator Smeltzer just shook my hand, and can you pay this back? Or your dad know you're doing this? And that's the way loans were made. So
Right.
things certainly have changed over the years.
Yep. That reminds me of a story where a customer was getting a mortgage and wanted a copy of the mortgage, and the bank didn't have a copying machine. So they say, here, take it and go to the library and get it copied, the original deed and everything. So I was like, okay, that's good. And I do remember a story that Senator Smeltzer told me, that how he would determine whether an individual could pay a loan back or not. You know, someone came to him to want to buy a house, let's say. He said, okay, well, you need a down payment, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to, for the next 3 months, save X amount of dollars for your down payment. If you can do that, I'll make you the loan. So that's how simple it was. If someone could attend to saving 3 months worth of whatever funds were necessary, is how a decision was made. So, times have changed. But anyway, at least we were able to, most of you were able to live through a special time in banking when it was a handshake and things of that nature. So, anything? Yes, sir.
When banks were using banknotes and then later greenbacks, many of those were printed in the bank themselves. Did you find any printing plates or presses or anything that New Windsor Bank used?
That's a good question. I'm not aware of that. No, I did not find any. But I mean, those notes, though, were actually personally signed by the bank president and the cashier. So as they were printed, they would be signed. But no, that's a good question. Now, there's a book back there that has been donated to the Heritage Committee of how to look for counterfeit bills, and it's from the 1800s, and it's beautifully lithographed to show what to look for. So they were obviously important things that the cashier would be looking at notes. I mean, greenbacks were issued in $500 and $1,000, so they were pretty big, and so same with the coin scales. So there was a lot of nefarious activity even then happening. So, but no. Okay. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have heard that there's some ghosts hanging out at that bank. And I have stories about them.
Judy, you know anything? You've been there, guys. Well, I'm not aware of it. No one's had any experiences that I've heard tell. I can tell you the basement's a little spooky. You go down there, but beyond that, I haven't heard. Anyway, well, thank you all, folks.
Thank you so much, Tom. We have a real quick announcement.
Thank you.
It's kind of leaving us a little sad here, but I just had some information given to me earlier before we came in here that our good friend Melvin Hurwitz, who many of you probably were here for his presentation, Melvin was 100 years old. He was a 1942 graduate of Rasmussen High School, served in the military, and it sounds like he passed away over the weekend. So this was
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We really appreciate you coming out today. This was a very informative talk, and I learned a lot. I helped Tom with some of the information, but it was very informative. And we hope that you guys can come to some of the other events we had and some of the other box lunch talks. So have a great